Hey, everybody. This week, we're going to try a little something different on the Remember That podcast. We're kind of allotting 1 week a month to do kind of a special show. And this month, we're going to talk about what really makes a horror movie and what really makes kind of like a thriller movie. There's all kinds of movies out there that everybody argues about. Is it horror? Is it thriller? Or whatever. So we're going to just get into it for a little bit, and we're going to talk about, is this movie horror or is this movie a thriller? And we're going to discuss it. So, Brent, tell everybody how this show's going to go tonight, buddy.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to first kind of set our ground rules on what do we think a thriller is, what do we think a horror movie is, what's the difference between the two. I have a list of movies here that I think are for sure thrillers without much debate and are for sure horror without much debate. And then we can discuss our 6 movies that we say are on the fence top movies and kind of debate them out. So, we're a horror movie channel or a horror movie podcast, but we also do a lot of thrillers as well. And so a lot of times you'll hear us kind of get into a debate, usually involving Dad in some way about what's like, is this a horror movie? Is this a thriller? Like, what's going on? So here's what I said about the two, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. So a thriller is meant to make you feel increased adrenaline, increase your heart rate, has more suspense, a little bit more on the action side. Whereas horror is meant to disturb, disgust, and horrify. So I kind of, in my head, I see like a scale. You've got horror on one end of the scale, you've got thriller in the middle, and you've got action on the far end of this scale. So you've got horror and action as the two ends, and thriller's kind of in the middle. That's how I see it in my head. And so movies that I think are for sure thrillers, I say movies like Taken, The Long Walk, Speed, and Shutter Island, I would say are 4 thrillers. Movies that are meant to like make you, it's not as much disturbing or disgusting like some horror movies, but I would classify them as thrillers. And then movies that I say are for sure horror movies are the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Those would be 3 that are for sure on the horror side. Now, of course, most of those are slashers, which I know that...
well, that's a subgenre of horror. There's subgenres.
But you can throw in like The Exorcist in there, Paranormal Activity. So I say those are horror. So what do you guys think of my list as far as like the non-debatable movies? Are there any that are debatable in there? Like,
No,
what are you guys
I think those are pretty solid. I think those are pretty
I
solid.
think those are solid. I do want to start off and give my point real quick because I'm going to follow the rules for the show on trying to categorize these movies, but I need to speak my piece first. So
spit it out.
Speak your piece, man. Speak it.
I think
piece, Professor.
a lot of genre movies are considered umbrella terms, and I think horror is considered an umbrella term.
And you taught me that. I'll say that. You taught me that.
For me, I think umbrella terms can overlap. You're going to have some movies that fit under different umbrellas. And then you're going to have movies that only fit under one umbrella. And that's where I have a really hard time because most of the thrillers that I've watched, I would consider in the umbrella of horror, but they might cross over into the umbrella of action. But most of them are going to fall under that horror umbrella. It would be a subcategory of horror. It would be a horror thriller or like a horror slasher or a paranormal horror, a haunting, whatever. I think a lot of these thrillers would be considered horror thriller or thriller horror. Especially a lot of the crime thrillers, I think, can start to bleed into that unless they lean heavy into the action movie. Then they're an action movie. But we can look at that with sci-fi. You've got different types of science fiction movies, anywhere from Interstellar, which is not horror, to Event Horizon, which I would say is horror. And I know we're going to talk about Alien. That's under that topic as well. So science fiction is going to then follow it becomes a subcategory because it's going to fit under different umbrellas. So at that point, now I could start debating on what's considered an umbrella term and what's considered a subgenre term. But for tonight's show, I am going to try to stick to the rules on what overall consensus of this topic, which way it's going to lean. So I said my piece on, on the
I
topic.
feel like the professor has wrote a doctorate thesis on this topic.
Look, I
Yeah.
got a formula that's going to solve this whole debate, and I'm going to drop it on you guys later because I got a formula
And that's fair enough.
that will specifically tell you the difference is if it's horror or is it a thriller. Now,
Okay.
before we get into this, does any of you guys, anybody else got anything to add? Audrey, Daniel, Matt, what you guys got?
So I've got one thing to add, and I'm not debating anything that's been said because I agree with the umbrella term and I agree with everything that Brand has said so far.
He's like, nothing past 2010 can be
We can have that debate another day.
So,
I got the feeling the decades show there's going to be a part 2 there because there's some leftover aggression there. So there will be a revisiting of that show. Let's just put it that way. I think we should break it down and do 80s versus 90s or something like that. But that's another show.
Put the gloves on.
Yeah.
Back to what I was saying, and yes, we do need to do that show. But kind of back to the point that I was going to make is there's a couple of movies, and it isn't my movie. This is just an example. Couple of movies. Brent had mentioned The Exorcist, which is very much horror. You've got a girl that gets possessed, okay, and then the events of the movie play out. So then you've got a movie a more recent movie that's called Nefarious, and Nefarious is about a guy who is in prison on death row. It's the day that he's about to be executed, and he has to talk to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is trying to prove him insane. It's very much a thriller, even though it still deals with possession. So you've got a possession movie that's very much horror, and a possession movie that's very much a thriller. And I think that it has a lot to do with the way that the information is presented. It's got a lot to do with the storytelling. It's got a lot to do with, how graphic the movie gets. So there's some different criteria that you start looking at when you start looking at horror and thriller and all of the different subgenres of, our subject matter. So that's kind of what I'm saying. You take the same overall subject, which is possession, and you've got a really good horror movie, and you've also got a really good thriller. And that's why I think this is great.
Like I said, I've got the formula breaker for all this. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, this is my formula. I've thought about it all week. And I'm going to use the movie Seven for an example. Right. Seven could easily be seen as a horror movie or a thriller. Now, in my mind, I don't see the movie Seven as a horror movie. I see it kind of like a police drama mystery type deal. That's how I see the movie Seven. Although, anytime you go opening up a box and there's a cut off head in it, a lot of people might see that as a horror movie. But I've been thinking about it because I knew we was going to have this discussion tonight. And here's how I see it. If you take the movie Seven and it showed somebody cut that head off, then that makes it a horror movie. But since it does not show the death, then that moves it into the, crime drama type field. So my formula for horror versus thriller, it has to show the kill scene. If it does not show the kill scene, that moves it into another genre for me. What do you guys think?
That goes back to what I was saying.
That's kind
that
of
goes back to what I was saying about it being graphic. How graphic it is. Go ahead, Audrey. I'm sorry.
What about any kind of horror movies that aren't necessarily full of kill scenes? It's more disturbing. Like, look at Room 1408. Nobody actually dies in that movie.
Well, that's like The Exorcist. There's no kill. Is there a kill scene in Exorcist?
Not really.
Most of it's
gets
not.
Down the stairs.
The priest almost dies.
Yeah, the priest.
Yeah.
So there's going to be exceptions to that rule. But I think for the most part, you have to show the kill scene. Drew, what was you going to say?
So I kind of had it built similar. So for like a thriller, it's more of like a slow, controlled build. there's tension, there's delayed answers, there's deadlines, and it's a lot more structured, I guess. Whereas horror, it's more like a cycle of dread, sudden shocks, like the kill scenes. The tension is a lot of times unknown and unexpected, and it's kind of got this rhythm to the movie, or kind of like you guys said, the formula of the jump scares and the repeat suspense, and it the threat almost overpowering the unknown. So you see it coming, you know it's in your face. And almost in layman's terms, I guess the way I put it was a thriller is like, I can't stop this. I've got to figure it out, but I can't stop this. Whereas horror to me is like, I can't escape this. I can't get away from it.
Yeah, I like it. I like that.
Yeah, I see that.
So yeah, that's my difference in horror and thriller. So that's pretty much the movie 7. So I know that's on our list. So we'll just start there. What's everybody else take on the movie 7? Daniel?
I think it's a thriller.
I
I'm
think
with
it's
you.
a thriller. I think it's a thriller.
Same. Bryson,
Okay,
what do you think?
I don't know if I've seen 7.
You haven't seen 7?
Oh,
I
you
don't
need to
think I
watch
have.
that.
Well,
We
my
should
brother,
review
you
it
need to
sometime.
watch it. It's a
It,
good movie.
it might be
Yeah,
it might
that's
be
a good
one
movie.
that I've seen, but I just don't, recall. But I need to go and look at it for sure.
Definitely, it's a good movie. Brent, go ahead.
All right, so I agree with you guys that 7 is a thriller, but let's just, I'm going to be the person that advocates for it being a horror movie, okay? So we spark some debate. Any movie, you said any movie that doesn't show the death means it's a thriller movie. And Audrey, your painting just fell in the background. I think that's
That was a
Ghost.
ghost.
I
That's
know.
Ghost.
It's like,
It's my field of expertise here. I'm trying to
Yeah,
catch
we
a
need to
beat.
bust out the EMF meters. She's got ghost in the background.
it's probably
That
because
goes-
I hung it and I didn't have my husband do it, to be honest.
That ghost has something to say about horror and thrillers.
He wasn't a Bigfoot fan.
He's so
Okay,
done with
so
that.
what I was going to say is, so let's play advocate here for this movie being a horror, for 7 being a horror movie. It doesn't show any death, as far as I know. It may show one death scene at the end. However, it shows the aftermath of multiple people being brutally murdered in brutal ways. So, like, for example, gluttony, a person that just keeps getting fed food over and over and over,
Right.
even when he doesn't want to, and you see his body just overfilled and like vomit coming out of his mouth. That would be the disgust factor of horror. Or like,
But could
I
you
can't remember,
imagine,
like-
Brent, if they showed that, though? If they showed that, because, that's implied for you to imagine that, when he finds the guy. But
I
could
could
you
say-
imagine if it actually showed that,
I could say, it's more horrifying to imagine that yourself than for a director to force feed it to you. So, like, in my head, for me to imagine him gagging over the food that he's eating, and just he's trying to vomit it back up, but then it's just more and more food. I mean, that's pretty horrifying, guys.
it is
I
horrifying.
could say the same thing about the Matilda scene with that chocolate cake.
Same difference. It
Build
really
it
is.
a horror movie. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, Brent, that's my point. And this is for me, the fact that they stumble upon the body and they find out, hey, this guy's killing people by the 7 deadly sins. This was obviously gluttony. And the fact now, if it would have flipped over and it would have shown that guy going through that torture, that would have put it over into the horror genre for me, rather than a, crime drama or whatever we want to call it.
So I guess that pushes like Saw over to horror more than
I would
thriller.
think so.
I
I
would
It does for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good kind of comparison. Like I said, I was just playing advocate for it being a horror,
Right.
but I agree it's a thriller. And I think that's a good comparison. Saw would be like the horror version of 7, sort of.
Exactly.
So,
And the
Okay.
difference is it shows the death scenes in Saw,
correct.
Saw wouldn't have been a tenth as good as it was if they didn't show those scenes, and in my mind anyhow. That's what made Saw good, was it actually showed those people having to go through that. And if it was just something that, a couple cops stumbled up on after the fact, it wouldn't have been that good, my opinion anyhow.
Yeah.
Mm.
So isn't 7 the movie where, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for Bronson since he hasn't watched it, so I guess I won't say it, but isn't there a cutting off of like
Yeah, I probably done spoiled it. He probably doesn't need to go back and listen to the first of this.
What's in the box?
What's
Oh,
in the
you're good.
box?
So I mean, I could understand where some people would say, "Hey, Seven is a horror movie." Like I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be like, "Oh no, it's not a horror movie," because
Yeah,
you can understand,
yeah,
what.
I wouldn't argue that bad with them. I might kick a little dirt on their shoe, but that'd be about it. You know.
What do you
So,
got? Anybody disagree though? Is there anyone that thinks that Seven is a horror movie?
No, it's more of a
nah,
thriller for me.
yeah. All right, Brent, what's the next movie on the list?
All right, so let's go to the big one that people debate, and that's Silence of the Lambs. And
Oh,
so,
here we go.
do you want me to start it off?
Go for it. We're gonna fight.
All right. Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie. Let me
Horror movie.
explain. Let me explain why. Austin agrees with me, so I've got the professor on my side. But
Horror
here's why.
movie.
So here's why I say it's a horror movie. Number one, it's very disturbing. Okay, so that's number one of the three criteria of a horror movie.
It is disturbing.
It's disturbing. You've got one of the most iconic villains in horror movie history with Hannibal Lecter. Okay, so I think that's one of the main things that pushes it over the edge in the horror, and not Seven. Seven, no one remembers the guy. I'm not going to give it away for Bronson, but no one remembers him as being the big killer. Okay, I didn't even know he was the killer until I watched the movie. Whereas I knew Hannibal Lecter was a horror movie icon before I'd ever watched Silence of the Lambs, because his mask is so iconic. So that's number one. You've got an iconic horror movie villain, and everyone knows him as a horror movie villain. They don't say, "Oh, Hannibal Lecter is a thriller villain." Like, it's usually Hannibal Lecter is a horror movie villain. And then that last scene still scares me. It can still be scary today. I mean, you're in a dark dungeon with Buffalo Bill, and I mean, you don't know where he is. And then you see hit through his vision, the night vision. I mean, that is a scary scene. That is a horror movie scene. So yes, there are thriller parts of the movie, but Silence of the Lambs overall is a horror movie. So Bryson, explain it better than I did, Bryson.
There's probably more scenes. There are two main scenes in this movie that I consider it pushing it over into a horror movie. One, him closing the door on that van when he got her in that van and he closed those doors, chilling. I know that that's not showing a kill scene, but showing that kidnapping was such a intense scene.
Disturbing.
And disturbing. And him having her in that pit, those two things combined. And then what Brent said at the end with those lights off and him with the night vision goggles, and he's just right there. He could touch her if he wanted to. That's some scary stuff. Like, if you've ever found yourself in the dark, like, look, I work a restaurant on the weekends and I'll go into the cooler to go get some stuff, and that light's on a timer. And if I walk in there at the very end of that timer, I'm in that cooler and that light just turns off. And I'm just at work, clocked in making money, but I'm still like startled for a second, because I'm just in that pitch black. And to think about being in that situation, in that type of pitch black, super creepy. And Anthony Hopkins pushed it over the edge when it comes to character, like design and creation. That dude is so chilling. Just him, he doesn't even have to do anything. He just has to stand there and talk, and I consider this a horror movie because that dude is he's just so
I mean, he
unsettling.
ate a liver with fava beans. Come on.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
I know that
Chianti.
it is a crime thriller, and I know it's a true crime thriller, or not true crime, but a crime thriller. But still, I would still put this into the horror category.
I think the only thing that scared me about that whole thing was him doing that weird sound.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that scared me in the whole movie.
Bill dancing in the mirror.
Well, there's a lot of disturbing parts of this movie. And if you go to the IMDb for The Silence of the Lambs, it's listed as a police procedural, psychological drama, psychological horror, psychological thriller, and a crime drama. See, IMDb is not listing it as full horror. Now, I'll say this: there's definitely horror elements of this movie.
Yes.
You're taking off people's skin, making a dress or whatever dude was making out of it. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on in that movie that could have been straight up down the alley of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Buffalo Bill. But again, for me, the fact that it does not show those kill scenes does not put it in the horror genre for me. It is a psychological thriller, 100% for me.
Now, outside of this show and these rules, if anybody were to ask me what type of movie is Silence of the Lambs, what's the genre of this movie, I'm going to say it's a horror thriller. I think that it is a thriller, but it has enough horror elements to put it under that umbrella term.
You know, another thing that makes it I'll say psychological thriller for me is the fact that it's told from the police's point of view.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, come from somebody that I wasn't a police officer by any means, but I was a correctional officer for 5 years. And I just know how those guys talk and how they intermingle with each other, you know, on the side. And this, for me, anyhow, the fact that it was told from their point of view, I just can't see a horror movie coming from a cop's point of view, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, I got to go with you on this one.
I don't know. That'd be scary to be a cop and have to be in that situation.
It would be terrifying. It would be terrifying,
Yeah.
especially with the night vision goggles. I'm not saying the movies wouldn't be scary. It's just, for me, anything that's told from a police point of view is a crime drama. That's just the way I see it, you know?
Audrey, well, what does Audrey think?
I also wonder if it also has to do with your own perspective and like what scares you more. Are you more scared of the psychological thriller part of it, or are you more scared of the horror, and so that's where you kind of lean towards more?
I think that the
That's
reality.
an interesting question.
I think that Silence of the Lambs being more realistic makes it more scary for me.
And that could be
Yeah.
true too. That could absolutely, because, you know, Silence of the Lambs, that could happen in real life, you know, for you know, we hope anyhow, like you take The Exorcist, we hope that somebody's not going to spin their head around and start puking pea soup on us. You know, we got bigger problems if that happens. But something like the Silence of the, and look, first off, I'm not saying that can't happen. It could. I talked to an Egyptian witch today. But more than likely, that's not going to happen though. But you know what? Probably as we speak right now, and the world we live in, somebody's probably in a hole right now rubbing lotion on their skin, you know, somewhere out there in this world. That's probably happening, you know. Audrey probably knows more about that than any of us, but still.
Well, all right. So I'm going to go with a psychological thriller. And I understand exactly what Brent and Bryson is saying, and I understand where they're coming from. There's certain elements of this movie that are very horrific, very scary. But there's also a reason why the average person can watch a true crime documentary and go to bed and sleep just fine. But if they watch a horror movie, they can't. Okay.
That's
true.
And so this movie is a very good example of that. So what you've got is Clarice Starling, okay, with her own backstory. She has her own baggage, things that she's trying to overcome in the FBI. Her father was killed at an early age. She was sent to go live on the sheep farm. She tried to save the sheep because she was a young girl. Like all of these things, that is just really good storytelling. And so, as far as a horror movie goes, you have some good storytelling in a horror movie, but you don't have as much character depth. And I think that Hannibal Lecter has so much more character depth than like Jaws or like Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger or whatever. I'm not saying that they don't have character depth, but it's so much more so that you're not, it doesn't scare me. I want to learn, you know, what makes this guy tick. And I want to know why he can outsmart everybody and outthink everybody. And it almost takes me out of the Buffalo Bill whole, you know, plot line, as much as I like it. And as much as I like, you know, following Clarice trying to track this guy down, I'm more interested in them talking to Hannibal Lecter, trying to get his help, because they know, you know, this serial killer, he already knows who it is. We've got to get it out of him and all this stuff. So it's not a horror movie because it's so character driven. And all of the horror movies that I've seen, yeah, they're character driven, but they're not as character driven. So there's a lot of different elements in play here. And I think that there are more psychological elements than what there are horror elements. And so that's why I think this is more of a psychological thriller.
Well, let me ask you this. So look at Hannibal and not Silence of the Lambs. So with Hannibal, the sequel, you're going to follow Hannibal Lecter more than you are in Silence of the Lambs because it's not really about Buffalo Bill. It's about Hannibal getting out. That's where you actually see him like with the mask and he's being transferred. But he ends up, you don't see it on Corky's, definition or like on his terms on his chart, but he cuts a dude's face off and wears that face to like get out. And that's how he escapes, stuffs his body up in the top of the elevator. But then at the very end, you got old dude sitting there at the dining room table getting his brain cut open and fed his own brains. So would that scene of showing him cut his brain and feed him and the guy having his face ripped off, would that be considered horror?
To
Go
me,
ahead, Brent.
no, because of the stuff that I've seen. But it goes back to what I was saying when you're watching a true crime documentary, because people do stuff like that. People gonna cut the top edge of somebody's head off, and then they're gonna eat their brain and serve it to them. They're gonna cut their face off and wear it. And I can watch that true crime, and I'm thinking, okay, the cops are looking for this guy. Yeah, it's time to go to bed because I got to work tomorrow. Versus if I'm watching what I consider a horror movie, now I'm looking for, hey, is the ghost in my house now?
Right.
Or is the killer in my house going to come get me? Do I hear a chainsaw about to start up? So it's the way that it's presented and the way that the movie is, it's a superb movie. It's a 10 for me, Silence of the Lambs. But for me, it's so psychologically driven, and that's something that really interests me. And so it's for me, it's a psychological thriller, even though it has some very horrific scenes and some very terrifying and horrific content in it.
So obviously, I'm not going to get mad at anyone that says it's a thriller because this is one of the closest movies on the list.
Yeah.
But here's my two things, and I just want to hear what you guys say. Number one, this is one of the 3 movies that's most inspired by Ed Gein. Now, the first 2, everyone, I would assume, I hope anyway, would say, yes, those are for sure horror movies, and that's Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, this third one, Silence of the Lambs. I mean, it's a dude trying to make a skin suit. You're like Bronson said, you've got Hannibal Lecter eating the guy's face. He ate his tongue out and then cutting his face off and wearing it. So that's one. Number
Now,
2.
I haven't seen Hannibal. Does it show him cut the face off?
No, because he's already cut Gary Oldman's face off, Gary Oldman
there's
is
the difference. That's the
No,
difference.
well, I'm talking about the paramedic. I don't mean to give that away.
the paramedic that's in Silence of the Lambs. That's how he escapes in Memphis.
Is that in Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, when he's in Memphis,
merged
that's
those 2 movies.
That's how he escapes. He goes down to Rio de Janeiro, follows the doctor from the.
He says,
I can't remember what
having
that
your
dude's
old
name
friend
is.
for dinner.
And he kills him, and then he winds up in Hannibal. He winds up. Which one's the one where he goes to Florence?
Well, wait just a second. I had one more point. And my other point was, can you think of it? And I want an answer if you guys can think of one. Can you think of any other movie where one of the main antagonists is known as a horror icon, that the movie itself that character is in is not considered a horror movie? Can you think of one?
Not offhand.
I just
No,
couldn't
but-
get past the guy that they had playing Hannibal Lecter. It's like, what world would I
Anthony
be
Hopkins is
scared? What world would I
Anthony
be
Hopkins
scared of
is a
that
very,
little fella?
very good actor.
He's
Yeah.
a good
Well,
actor, but
well,
in what
you
world would
find
I
a way to
honestly be
be-
scared of that little fella? You know?
But you find a way to be scared, or I do, like just the way that he kind of acts. But I know what you mean. But yeah, that's kind of my point, though, is that you've got an iconic horror movie villain. If you just went to your average person, said, "Hey, I'm Hannibal Lecter," or whatever, or
Oh,
so
he's
how do
got
you,
the name, yeah.
yeah, how do you feel about Hannibal Lecter? You'd say, "Oh, that's a horror movie icon." So, and I can't think of any other movie where you've got a character.
I mean, I wouldn't consider him a horror movie icon. I would consider him an icon He's very, very much an icon, but for a horror movie, I wouldn't say that he's a horror movie icon.
Well, but you do see him in those like horror movie villain like pictures where they have all the different horror movie villains and
Even Spirit. Spirit
That's what
has
I was
the
gonna say.
yeah, like Spirit
Yeah,
Halloween.
he's always
Um,
one of them.
any kind of horror like booth that you go to at like CreepyCon or something like that, and if they have any kind of stickers, magnets, whatever, I'm sure you're going to find some sort of Hannibal Lecter mask in there somewhere.
Well, and to your point, I guess I collect horror movie figures. Most of them are made by NECA, but I do have a Hannibal Lecter that's on my shelf. He's in there with all my other horror icons. So yeah, I guess I have to amend my statement.
Well, you know what? That's different, though, the way I see it, because I'm going to say this. Silence of the Lambs is a psychological thriller, but maybe Hannibal Lecter is a horror icon. That's just weird to say that.
that's, what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
think of any other.
Well,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
To that point, though, I've got Hannibal Lecter that's on my horror shelf. Okay, but I also have Matt Hooper from Jaws that's on my horror shelf.
Yeah,
that's another topic for
so
tonight.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Which I'll just go ahead and say this. Let's segue into our next movie, Jaws.
Okay.
That's on the list, right, Brent?
That's on the list, yes. And so
now
he's animated. Oh, okay, Corky.
I'm just, you go ahead, but I'm just going to say, normally I wouldn't have called Jaws a horror movie, but the professor over here had to school me in horror subgenres a few months back. So now, Jaws to me is a horror movie.
Rawson had a whole lecture.
Do you know what the main thing that makes Jaws a horror movie? Let's think about it. Well, that. But what else have we learned today, class? It shows the kill scenes. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
well, also when concerning Jaws, I've seen it's not necessarily Jaws that makes me feel this way, because I've seen way too many documentaries on Shark Week. But Jaws is a shark. Jaws is a shark. And I don't swim in the ocean like I used to, strictly because of that. I don't want to get eaten by a shark. So that now you've induced fear in me.
Exactly.
So technically, on those same lines, you can say that there's some validity in calling Jaws a horror movie.
And a lot of people, there's some people don't swim in a pool because of Jaws.
Yeah.
I did when I was younger. My grandparents had a pool, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you can go swim in." And for some reason, my 10-year-old mind was like, "There's a shark in this pool any minute now."
Hey, down in Texas, you can't never tell, man. There might have been something in a big old beast of some sort.
Swimming pool growing up, and during the daytime, I could hop in that pool at any point and go swimming, whatever. But as soon as it turned nighttime and I went to go have a little night swim, boom, there's a shark in the water. And
yeah, man, there's just something different about swimming.
That like mind flip.
Have you guys seen where they have the movies at night where you can be on a tube in the river and watch outside Jaws while you're on your tube in the river?
That'd be
cool. That'd be so cool.
No, I wouldn't do it. It's a horror movie.
So where are we with,
and then we'll find a movie where we can or a place where we can go watch Jaws swimming on a tube.
Where are we with consensus on it? Does anybody consider Jaws on this show? Does anybody consider Jaws a thriller?
No, it's
a horror movie.
Okay, all right. So we're in consensus then.
But let's be the advocate for it being a thriller, just to make it more interesting. Okay. So you said it shows the kill scene. Sort of. It shows in the same line. It kind of shows someone being killed, but it doesn't really show. You really see them just dragged underwater, which we said was disturbing because of the thrashing and stuff.
Then it shows the blood in the water too. See,
what about old dude?
Boat guy?
Yeah. What about old dude?
Yeah.
Well,
true.
The scariest scene for me in it was whenever old dude gets knocked out of his boat and he's got somebody that's trying to help him back in the boat, and you see the shark come like from the side. It's got its mouth open, and then it like closes in around him, like it's under the water, but you can see it. So it's like this dude can't outswim this thing. He can't get into the boat fast enough. It's got him. That is scary to me.
Yeah, and what's that called when you're afraid of what's under you in the ocean? That's some kind of fear.
That's called being just smart. So,
It's like thassophilia or whatever it is. But that's another thing that makes it a horror movie, because people are terrified. It puts fear in you, man, and that's what makes it a horror movie. And the main thing that makes it a horror movie is it shows the kill scenes. You know?
Well, think of a. So I agree with you. It's a horror movie, but think of a way. Like how could someone debate that it's not a horror movie? You would say like the movie itself isn't.
Well, the fact that it's a shark, and people wouldn't see a shark as a horror movie because it'd be like of course, that you think about, you can't say animals because then you think about a movie like Cujo. I would think Cujo is a horror movie,
Yeah, Cujo's a horror movie.
Well, okay. So I don't agree with this, but I've heard some people say the difference between a horror and a thriller is that in a thriller, you are the person, like the audience is the person hunting down, or the protagonist is hunting down the antagonist. Whereas in a horror movie, the antagonist is hunting down the protagonist. Well, if you want to use that line of reasoning, in Jaws, the protagonists go and hunt down the antagonist and actually kills him. There's not a lot of horror movies that I can think of the main ones anyway, where the antagonist, the villain, actually gets killed by the protagonist. So like in Halloween, Michael Myers never really dies except for in the last one. Friday the 13th, Jason never really dies. He does, and then comes back as a zombie. The Exorcist, the demon doesn't die, so that's part of what makes that movie scary. In ghost movies, they're already dead, so you can't kill them. So if you want to go with that line of reasoning, the fact that the protagonist gets on a boat, hunts the shark down, kills him, makes it a thriller instead of a horror movie.
Then how did we get Jaws Part 2, though? How did they explain that?
Is it a different?
It's a different shark.
That's
I don't know. I've
Bruce's
never
nephew.
seen it.
Bruce's nephew?
Yeah.
Is it really? Or did he just
No, I don't know.
First off, like Corky, don't even bother watching 2 through 4.
I don't plan on it. No,
They're fun.
Like if you want a fun movie to watch, go ahead. I personally kind of like Part 2 just because it's fun, but it's definitely nowhere near as if Jaws is a 10, then Jaws 2 is like a 5, and Jaws 3 is like a 2, and Jaws 4 doesn't even rank.
Look,
that's how that goes.
The only Part 2 I'm watching is The Howling Part 2, baby. You know what I'm saying?
That's the only one you need. That's the only one you need.
All right.
That's
All right. So it seems like
I love that.
It seems like the consensus is that Jaws is a horror film.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you guys a big God right, in my opinion. Brent, this movie's not on the list, but I'm going to throw it in there real quick. You would not believe, as I was researching for this show this week, how many people say that Jurassic Park is a horror movie.
For real?
I don't know, though.
And I just don't see it, man. Not at all.
Yes,
I don't know, though.
Well, what you got, Professor?
Look, that kitchen scene, man, that is some scary stuff. That raptor opening up that door and creeping through. And
it's suspense. Suspenseful. I wouldn't call it horror.
If you don't move, he won't see you. But look, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but the umbrella term, I think a creature feature is under the umbrella term of horror.
And I agree.
I know we're not going to fully jump into Godzilla in this episode because we'd be here all night. I could talk Godzilla all night. But if we're going to say creature feature, and we're going to consider those dinosaurs the creature of a movie where they are the antagonist and the protagonist are trying to survive from said creature, then sure.
Well, let me put it like this. There ain't a single horror movie ever been made that you can go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal and get a toy for that horror movie.
I mean, fair enough too.
You know, I ain't never went and got a Happy Meal and got a Michael Myers or a Jason Voorhees figurine out of it.
Now this brings up another topic. Does horror have to be adult only?
I think
No,
so.
No, because
I don't think so.
Man, you can't listen. Ain't nobody started
Goosebumps
watching
is
horror
horror.
movies earlier than I did. I'm not saying a kid can't watch a horror movie, but I'm just saying they shouldn't be made for kids.
Well,
You might watch. You might make a scary, like a spooky show for them, but not a horror movie. You know.
what about I'm
Remember
just gonna
kill
throw this
scenes.
in as a bonus movie, because I know it's not on our list. But what about Coraline?
That's what I was
Coraline
thinking
is a creepy child's movie.
It's a
I
horror
would say
movie.
Coraline is
Yeah.
creepy.
It's a horror movie.
I don't
I'm
see
not
it as a
sure
I
horror.
that
wouldn't
one.
consider Coraline a horror movie.
It's
It
like
just
a,
I
follows-
Matt, it's like a kid's horror movie, basically. is
It's
what
a
Coraline is.
kid's horror movie for sure. There's not any adult, violence or gore or anything like that. But you
Can we
still
put
got
that
like
under the umbrella as children horror? But
Sure.
again, I'm not going to use the word horror because horror has to show somebody getting killed.
Well, you know,
That's
I
it.
mean, look at a movie like Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yeah.
You never
That's
seen-
that's
I
a
ain't never
pretty
seen that.
I've seen
it's a
that.
good movie. It's a pretty heavy movie.
Well, the
Especially
novel,
because it's geared towards kids, and the novel is even better than the movie.
the novel's considered a horror novel
Yeah.
I've never seen
So,
that. I can't
you
by
know,
know it.
Ray Bradbury.
Now, is it a horror movie that is as shocking as what some of the other things that have come out? No, but it's geared for kids. Okay, and a kid watches it, and it will freak a kid out. Like it was a lot scarier than what I thought that it would be. And I just read the book again a couple of years ago, and then I watched the movie shortly after that. And I'm watching it, and I'm going, "Dang, okay, this is pretty heavy for a kid." If an 8-year-old is going to watch this, which I think that it's age appropriate for an 8-year-old, but if an 8-year-old is going to watch it, I'm going, "Okay, yeah, that's pretty heavy for an 8-year-old."
And
You can lose your soul in this carnival. You can lose
Dang.
your soul in a mirror maze. You've got this chair that runs the life cycle of this guy backward, and it's kind of like this Benjamin Button kind of effect that happens, except he's evil. That's some pretty heavy stuff if you're watching it as an 8-year-old. So, I can see where that has some validity.
well, you look at Coraline, if you think about it not as a claymation, cartoon-esque movie, and you were to look at it as live action, think about like your own mother. All of a sudden they have buttons for eyes
Hey,
and they're acting like completely different. And then they turn into this creature in front of you that's chasing you and you're trying to get away from because they want to sew buttons into your eyes so that you could live there with them forever.
Yeah, my mama did that.
it's funny you bring that up, Bryson, because Coraline is my daughter's favorite movie. My daughter's
I love
21 years.
that movie.
She's
That's my
21 years
daughter's
old,
favorite.
and she freaking loves Coraline. I swear to God,
Love that movie.
we was having this same conversation the other day because I love Coraline, and I told her, I said, dude, a live action Coraline would be freaking terrifying.
It
With
would
them
be.
big fingers and the buttons for eyes.
Or spidery legs.
And I think maybe
what I'm saying.
It's a horror
that's
movie.
that's part of what takes it away from me, because I do like Coraline. We watch it, once a year, or at least once every couple of years. But
Yeah.
I'm going to watch Coraline, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to watch Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm going to
I mean,
watch
for sure.
Monster House,
For sure.
and it's because it's animated. Because
Well,
I
those are
don't
all
see
really
animation.
fun
I don't see animation as horror,
I
even
don't
though
either.
the themes of Coraline is very horrific. I don't see animation as horror.
Well,
That,
technically, Monster House, it's animation, but it could also be considered a children's horror. It
Yeah.
is paranormal. That
Yep.
house is possessed by a ghost.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the
Again,
movies I
got
thought
to go
of.
back to the Happy Meal rule. If I go to McDonald's and get a Monster House toy in the Happy Meal, it can't be horror. We got to call it something else. We can make up a term, child spooky vision, whatever we want to call it, but it's not horror.
Spooky vision.
Whatever,
Which I think Brent kind of brought up a good point, or I think it was Brent, about Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And even the book, The Scary Stories. I can't remember. It may have been called Scary Stories.
To tell in the dark.
Those are terrifying for children. And I mean,
Well, and
Mom
to
used
that
to read the
point,
story. My mom used to read the story. You know, the girl with the
ribbon.
the ribbon.
Yeah.
And when it got to the end, Mom would always like, okay, and her head falls off, and that picture of the head coming off, I was like that really scared me as a kid. So I mean, that's a horror. It's for kids,
and I mean,
it's for kids, but it's a horror
like you
book.
have, just like you mentioned R.L. Stein, you've got books like that. You know, Christopher Pike was a young adult author, wrote young adult books, and Christopher Pike books, he had kids dying. You know, it was mainly teenagers and whatnot, and he was knocking those teenagers off right and left. So Christopher Pike, even though it was a considered young adult novel or young adult books, is still horror in my opinion. You know, so I get it. I see that.
So it does seem like there's some debate about if there could be kids horror. So that could be a show on its own, because I definitely think there can be horror movies made for kids.
I think we definitely just found another subgenre there.
Throwing James and the Giant Peach. That's a weird movie.
There you go.
We're going off the Happy Meal roll. We'll just call it Mick Horror.
Yeah, that's going to be Mick Horror. Yeah, I like it.
There
I
we
like
go.
it. Brent, what's the next movie on the list, buddy?
All right, next movie is Alien. So unfortunately, we don't have our friend Cade on this show, because he would be getting into this. But for Cade, and for me too, I think it's a horror movie. Alien's a horror movie, and I'm going to say the same rule that I used for Silence of the Lambs. The Xenomorphs are one of the most iconic horror movie villains of all time. So, and it's a horror movie in space. So, horror.
Sci-fi horror. Let's call it sci-fi horror. Nevertheless, it's a horror movie. And what's the main thing that makes it horror? It shows the kill scenes.
Mm-hmm. And it's a creature feature.
Exactly. Which, if you'll remember, Bryson, back a few months ago, we had this art. I was like, nah, man, that's sci-fi. Nah.
Yep.
But then I had to get schooled on the subgenres of horror. And Alien is 100% sci-fi horror, because it shows the kill scenes. Now, if it did not show the kill scenes, it's just going to be sci-fi.
Well, because again, you can look at different science fiction movies, and Interstellar is a science fiction movie, not a horror movie.
Right.
But you look at Alien or Event Horizon, they might be in space, but there's some scary situations going on, whether it has to deal with a spaceship or an alien or whatever. That xenomorph is one of the scariest things ever conceived and designed. That
truly
thing is
man.
Terrifying. There's nothing you can do, really. Like, there's nothing you can do. That thing is
The dude
awful.
bleeds acid, man. What are you going to do with something that bleeds acid? Have
All
you
right,
guys
well,
seen
now-
Romulus yet? Have you guys seen that one?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Good Lord, I'm not going to give it away, but dang.
To that point, then, how do you feel about Predator?
So
Predator's got Arnold
I don't
Schwarzenegger.
have
It's
a
an
good
action
opinion
movie.
on
I'm
that.
sorry. It's action.
Predator is not as scary as Alien. And I
Kid.
want to
I don't
say
see no
that
scary
Predator
elements.
is more
chop-
action.
They chop off dude's arm while
But-
he's holding the gun. They chop it off.
He chops his
Get
arm
to the
off.
chopper.
Predator's sitting there holding the skull and spinal cord of this dude, just waving it around, Like, it is a creature feature, in the whole being stalked in the jungle by something that can turn invisible, super scary. You got flayed guys hanging in the woods that they found, knowing that could happen to you. It's a
Plenty
horror
of
movie.
killing.
So
Plenty of
you're
killing.
You think
saying
Predator's a horror
it's a horror
movie?
movie?
I think it's a horror movie. It might be a
we
horror
got-
action.
We got to
It
disagree
might
on that
be
one,
like an
our
action
professor.
horror, but
Listen,
the
let me tell you
Predators,
why. Let me tell you
I'll
why
have to
it's
watch
not
the
a horror
movie
movie.
to enter into this debate, because I've just never seen it.
Listen,
Arnold
Vince.
Schwarzenegger. That's why
Vince,
it's
never
not.
seen
That's
Predator?
rule number one is
I
why it's
know.
not horror. But what
And I know-
did Matt say? Get to the chopper and started
If
laughing.
it has
Get to the chopper.
if it has
What
to
are you
Arnold
doing?
Schwarzenegger in the movie,
No,
if
no,
Arnold
that movie.
Schwarzenegger is in the movie,
Yeah,
then it cannot
yeah.
be horror. It can't
Yeah.
be. It's the way that
If we're
the
going,
Arnold
if we're
is the working out and the pumping of the iron and all of that. He is not the
Instead of-
horror icon.
yeah, if we're
Okay,
going to
but
call
let's
Predator
look
horror,
at
we got to call Commando
Predator
horror.
as a franchise. What about Prey?
And they're action
That
movies.
was
I-
that one.
I
Oh,
am a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, and I'm a huge '80s action movies
Mhm.
fan. And I consider Predator. I love Predator, but I consider it an action movie.
Ain't got no time to bleed, man. See, they don't even show blood in it. 'Cause they ain't got no time to bleed.
But I mean, but also, okay. So you look at a movie like The Running Man. Okay, Arnold was in The Running Man, and what you have is a person that is thrown into basically a game, and people are watching and betting on how that guy's going to die.
The Running Man's a thriller.
When
Yeah.
you put it like that, yeah, that could definitely be a horror movie. But when you watch The Running Man, it's an action movie. And so I think that it has a lot to do with the storytelling and how the kills are set up, because you've got people that get killed in The Running Man too. You know, he cuts buzzsaw, from groin to sternum with his own chainsaw. Okay. You could say, okay, that's just like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But it's not. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger cutting this guy up. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Conan
but
can't be in
it's
a horror
because
movie.
it happened in a game. On
Yeah.
Running Man. Now, if you
Yeah.
think about Predator, these are military trained, best of the best, muscles, get out, type dudes, and then, they're all getting slaughtered.
Yeah.
Now, that's pretty horrifying.
It's
It's
pretty
still
I
scary.
think that
36
it's
of the
all with
80s.
I think that it's
Oh, God.
all with the storytelling and how the movie is shot,
Well,
basically.
that's my thing is with Predator. I think the way the story is told and the way it's shot, I think it would fall into that horror because they are straight up stuck. Like they don't know what to do. They're just in this jungle trying to survive, trying to figure out what's going on. All you hearing all these people dying, like all the different, enemies and stuff out in the jungle. They don't know what's going on. And I think with how slow the movie's shot, showing them being stalked along the way is what makes it more horror because you are watching them be stalked. It's not just this fast paced, throw Arnold in a jungle with a machine gun type movie. I think it's more than that.
Yeah, they were the hunters when they showed up, and then they ended up the hunted all the way to the chopper.
But then the Predator, even the Predator can tell the difference between its prey. So just like at the end of the movie, whenever they had her captured from the very beginning of the movie. I can't remember what that girl's name was, but they had that girl with them, and she kept seeing all of these deaths happen. And at the end of the movie, she picks up the gun, and Arnold kicks the gun out of her hand, and he was like, it didn't kill you because you were unarmed. There's no sport." So now the Predator recognizes there's no sport with this. And so it for me, it takes away the horror element because the Predator can think. And
How
it's like,
Well,
did
what
we
was
get
our,
on to the Predator?
what
How
was
did that
our,
even
yeah, that's
happen?
what I was gonna say.
I guess it's my fault. I was
What
the one that
was
brought it
our,
up. But
So is our
my bad.
consensus that Alien is a horror movie? Is there anyone
Yes.
that thinks Alien
I
is a thriller?
think Alien is a horror movie, and I think Predator is a action movie.
Amen.
That's me.
Amen.
Okay, now let's play the
I
advocate.
want to hear what Audrey hadn't talked in like 10 minutes. I want to hear
Yeah.
what Audrey.
I'm sure she's not watching Predator.
So Josh watches Predator. I may have seen bits and pieces, but I just kind of tune it out and go on about my day. So I have
think
no
it's
idea.
I think it's action horror.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Well, we got time to break down one more, Brent. What's another movie on the list, bud? Pick a
Okay.
good one.
All right, I say for the last one. So it's between two. There's Frailty and The Sixth Sense.
Well, I've never
The
seen
Sixth
Frailty,
Sense is-
so
So I think
I
The
haven't seen
Sixth Sense is
Frailty.
a better one to have the debate on, even though I do love the movie frailty there.
Scared the crap out of me.
But let's say The Sixth Sense. So for me, I would say that The Sixth Sense is a thriller.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I don't know.
You
I
know
don't know.
what kind of moves the Sixth Sense maybe into horror? Because it has a paranormal side to it, you know?
Yeah, but your criteria doesn't. It
You're
doesn't
right.
show
You're right. So I got to think about it for a minute.
Dude killed
And-
himself in the bathtub or in the bathroom. But
Well,
see,
you
he
know-
looked crazy. Now that's
But
what
it's
I
got
thought was
paranormal in it. It's
horrifying.
got paranormal.
But
yeah.
I mean, you're watching this movie and you know that Haley Joel Osment is not in danger.
But there's
You know what I
also
mean?
that one scene where that little boy comes down the hall and
Yeah,
he turns around and his head is blown off.
Yeah, that's the scariest.
Yeah.
That's the scariest
Horror movie.
Yeah.
Horror movie. 100%.
Well,
Look.
see, that's the genius of it. It's a thriller. You're thinking it's a thriller all the way through, and then you find out he's the one that's dead.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
I think the fact that it's got a paranormal side to it, it deals with the paranormal, which would put it over into the horror genre for me.
But I mean, you can look at a lot of ghost story movies, and
Courtney,
just
are you
because it's a ghost story movie,
a horror movie.
Do
just
what?
because it's a
Are you-
ghost.
Whoa, we're not talking about Patrick Swayze right now in
Just-
Roadhouse.
Hey,
Just
there
and
is
all
because-
that.
that one window
Listen.
scene, you know.
Just
Turkey, how much have you fantasized doing the?
Hey, look, hey, what I do
There's
after
that
work is my
window pane
business. You know what I'm
scene
saying?
with the demons.
Listen,
Oh gosh. Oh man.
first off, let me say this. To answer your question, the movie Ghost is not a horror movie. All right?
hey man,
deals with
now wait.
paranormal.
Now
And if
hold
I
on,
want to go
hold on.
home and make clay,
but
I
you
will.
but you want to
Or-
but you want to talk about scary scenes like that kid in The Sixth Sense. You watch old dude that actually killed Patrick Swayze in the movie. You watch the demons come and drag that guy off.
That's what I said.
That's
The-
scary,
with
man.
the window pane where the glass
That's-
got him, and then the
that's
demons
scary.
come and drag him.
That's scary.
Look, my mom
Good point.
loved
There's
Patrick
demons in the
Swayze.
movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, man. They
Yeah,
drug
well,
they drug
yeah.
two people. They drug two people off, drug them straight to hell, man. And it was
Yeah,
scary.
Yeah. There's shadows.
It was
yeah.
scary.
There's two
Yeah.
people being dragged to hell in the movie
Yeah.
Ghost.
That's a weird
Yeah.
one.
Yes.
It's got a good point, but I can't make a Patrick Swayze movie a horror movie. I just
Well,
can't do
that's
it.
why.
Oh yeah.
What about
that's why,
Roadhouse?
dude.
Especially if it's
That's
got Demi
why I
Moore with a
can't
little
make-
boy haircut in it.
That's why I can't make a Bruce
You know.
Willis movie a horror movie. I
Yeah.
can't do
Well,
it. It's
Well,
Yeah.
now, hold on, Daniel. Hold on. Even though Bruce Willis is in it, dude, it's talking about seeing dead people. It's got to be horror, you know.
it's not
I'm
hard though
batting
because
1,000 tonight. It's a horror.
there's a lot just because it's got a supernatural element, just because it's got a ghost in it, don't make it horror for me. I mean, you look at Don Knotts and the Ghost and Mr. Chicken. That's supernatural element, but it's not a horror
So,
movie. It's comedy.
What are you saying that blood has to be spilt for it to be a horror?
And it
movie?
was.
I'm
And it
saying
was.
you have to. Yeah,
No,
I'm saying that something in it has to scare you and be
I mean,
like not
Scared?
just one time, not just one time,
Audrey's
but
point-
it's
What
to
like,
about
Audrey's
him running
point-
into the tent and
to
like
Audrey's
hiding in
point,
the tent?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
to
the
Audrey's
little girl
point, but-
throwing up. In
Yeah,
there.
you find the recorder under the bed where the mom was poisoning the little girl, and you watch it
and-
all unfold.
And then
I
the,
mean,
the
the-
little
The
hanging
kid
in
with
the
the head
stairway.
blown off.
yeah, and the little
I
boy's
guess
like, what's scary to me is when they don't know they're dead, and he's actually talking about him. I'm like,
Yeah.
really?
I guess I'll be odd man out, but like it's not horror to me.
Oh, I
It's
thought it was a
it's
thriller,
a
too.
thriller to me. It's not even really a thriller. It's more of a suspense movie.
It's a suspense
That's what-
horror. Let's call
That's
it
what a
that.
thriller is.
I mean, it is
You know,
suspense horror for sure. Like it's a horror thriller,
That's-
horror, whatever. But
It's like the
I mean-
others with Nicole Kidman,
Yes.
where
Yeah, I
where
could
they
be-
were dead the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, same
be-
concept, and it wasn't
could-
horror.
I've
could
never seen that.
definitely
Was it
be-
good?
Like debate or
The slow
being
burn
won
is
over
good.
for being a horror movie.
Mm.
I mean,
I think there was already too many scary scenes mentioned to not evolve it as a horror movie.
I mean, that is true. There was a lot of scary scenes mentioned for it not to.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
in my head, The Sixth Sense is just I don't think of it as a horror movie, but I
yeah.
mean, maybe it's so close on that border that
Well,
it
I
could
mean, I
fall
lived
more
in a
into the
haunted
horror.
house for years. I saw dead people. So,
Well,
you know,
I live in
what
one
I've
right
learned is
now. Dang.
what I've
I think he's
learned
the
is
Iceman.
what I've learned is we could debate about this being a horror movie or this being a thriller, but one thing we will all be horrified about is imagining Corky and Patrick Swayze going like this
Hey,
with a
look,
toy car. If you
look.
want to be
Pay me my money.
horrified,
I'll make a clay pot with anybody. Just give me my money. I ain't worried about it. I'm secure with my sexuality. You know what I'm saying?
Well, at least if it
Dude,
isn't
Corky over
good,
there
there's
making
always
clay
Barber
pots.
College. Isn't that what he's been to
Make-
that Terry Funk on there? It's like there's always Barber College.
Yeah.
well,
How's
guys,
y'all?
it's been a good, debate, discussion top episode. I always have fun doing these. We still talk about the decades episode. It's fun making fun of Dad for having all the older decades as the top, and then all the newer decades towards the bottom. I think this is another one. There wasn't as much disagreement as the decades, but we did have a little bit of disagreement. That's what makes it fun, having a little bit of disagreement sprinkled in just so we have something to kind of discuss.
Well,
So,
I'll tell you this much: here's what we've accomplished on this show tonight. We have established some rules for horror movies, and I think pretty much everybody has to agree the kill scenes have to be shown in order for it to be made a horror movie. And if we're talking about, children horror movies, Mick horror, that's what we're going to call it.
Mick horror.
We created a whole new genre tonight. That's what we created.
Yeah,
Matt,
we
you
did.
gotta
Mick
trademark
horror,
that.
you know what I'm saying?
Innovators.
TM.
Everybody out there, be looking for a post on our page tonight about Mick horror because I'm going to get creative when the show ends.
Let me tell you, my son and my girls, they eat those movies up. So if you ever need a kid to come debate with you on those, they'll do
There
it.
you go. Yeah.
Hey,
Me and Mick horror
maybe we
debate.
can do a show in the future where we have the kids on and we'll just do a Mick horror show. How about that?
There
We'll
we
have the
go.
kids on debate with us. All right, guys. Appreciate everybody joining us tonight, man. From the Remember That crew, this was Horror versus Thriller. I hope everybody enjoyed it, man. Take a few minutes to stop by our sponsor, the Cult of Cult Clothing Company. Don't forget to put in that code HORRORPOD. Get you some sweet horror movie swag or country music swag. They got all kinds of stuff on there, man. Put that code in there and get you 10% off your total purchase. Appreciate everybody joining us, man. And that's it for this show. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
bye.
Popcorn cold in my shaking hands. Curtains drawn. black as they